I represent TÜV Rheinland, which is a German testing, inspection and certification company. We're headquartered in Germany, but we are international with more than 200 testing labs and with more than 25,000 employees worldwide. So I'm going to start with a very quick introduction. I am the Sustainability Business Development Manager for TÜV Rheinland in Western Europe and work with supply chains all over the world to support on sustainability topics, strategy and legislative topics. So I'm going to very quickly, within the next 40 minutes, walk you through updates on European regulation 2024 to 2026 and onwards, and what you should focus as a manufacturer, brand and retailer, and in general what's interesting to know about currently. If you have questions throughout the conversation, please interrupt me. So I will take I will take questions at the end. But if you want to discuss quickly throughout, please raise your hand. So we'll dive right into the topic, and we can see that within the realm of softlines, this is a very broad sort of focus that TÜV Rheinland and generally other retailers have on circularity, chemistry, and climate. We've identified the 3 C's within TÜV Rheinland, and we see that a lot of the certified content, so testing, inspection, and certification across a lot of different softlines, textiles, and packaging are needed within the European space, especially because of the proliferation of our strategies, so reuse, repair, recycle, and the apparel and textile brands are highly interested in this. Also, we see that under chemistry, specifically MRSL and wastewater testing is becoming not only a good to have, but a mandatory aspect, especially given the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then in terms of climate, obviously, that's probably one of the biggest components of the European Union strategy. We have product carbon footprint life cycle assessment and carbon border adjustment mechanism, as well as all sorts of other aspects. So these are obviously a focus both because of governmental targets and private company targets. And these really trickle down all the way from brand and retailer to supplier and manufacturer. So here we have a quick timeline from 2019 when the Green Deal has been adopted, and it is a very comprehensive packaging of regulation across the European space. And then 2020 when we have the EU taxonomy regulation, which really brings on the CSRD and ESRS, so extended sustainability reporting obligations for different companies. Then we go into more material regulations such as EU deforestation regulation, CSDDD, so fair supply chains, human rights and environmental protection, the Green Claims Directive really looking across advertisement and all sorts of green claims and facilitating sustainable consumption, as well as the Eco-Design Sustainability Directive, which is really underpinning circular economy and promoting the durability and longevity of products. All the way up to 2050, when we are looking at climate neutrality for the majority of companies and entities in the European Union. So I'm going to try and really take this approach to make everyone familiar to these bits of regulation that are here in the back. I'm probably not going to cover everything, and I'm not going to cover for sure all the timelines. But obviously, Green Claims Directive has just been voted in the EU space. There are some countries that moved ahead, such as Netherlands, and I'm going to give an example of that. But obviously, outside of the European space, so in the UK, that has been implemented since 2021. EU deforestation regulation is going to be enforced this December, and it's going to have a very broad scope. Obviously, it covers packaging. It doesn't yet cover textiles and man-made cellulosic fibers. However, that might be included in the future. The CSRD, a very holistic sort of corporate sustainability reporting directive alongside with the CSDDD. They work together as a mechanism. The EPR is the taxonomy of the European Union, and it's looking at incentivizing more sustainable products, and the digital product passport is going to be the mechanism to prove that. And as if that wasn't enough, we have a bit more. So the chemical strategy for sustainability within the next few years, the EU Commission will trigger more than 50 regulatory measures, including updates to REACH and CLP, which is the chemical classification, labeling, and packaging of substances, and REACH lists. These are pretty much triggered to basically design out harmful substances, persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic for reproduction substances within textiles and packaging. And then we have all of this really underpinned by the Green Claim Directive, which is looking into not allowing products with hazardous substances to carry green claims, which currently is happening in the EU and UK market. By the way, statistically, I wanted to ask you if you know how much, in terms of a percentage of the EU market, the European Commission has noticed that the green claims are misleading. So if you have a stab as a percentage, how many of the European green claims are misleading currently in the European space? Anyone? 60%. Anyone else? You win. You're closest. It is 48% of the green claims made in the European Union that are misleading. So that's still a very high percentage, and it's based on a survey done in 2022. So moving forward, I don't think I need to position why we're here. Obviously, we have the European Green Deal based on all the IPCC, so International Panel of Climate Change, and the Paris Agreement to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees. As well as European climate law. So if in 1997 this was nice and interesting to have, and we would acknowledge the greenhouse gas emissions reduction needing to be achieved, now it is actual legislation. And this is really coming together in 2024, Q1, with the vote of EU Green Claims Directive and it being approved. So I can't tell you how much I've been waiting for this directive because it's going to regulate the market in such an amazing way. And it's really looking at a number of different claims. So based on that, things like environmentally friendly, natural, biodegradable, climate neutral, or eco will be outlawed. And that's from 2026. And of course, the European Commission gives 2 years of implementation for this. Also, anything climate neutral will be outlawed as well, and that's because the EU Commission is looking at decarbonizing, and it's not looking at carbon offsets. So anything based on a carbon offset strategy is no longer going to be substantiated. Now, if we look at how the Green Claims Directive is implemented in Netherlands as opposed to the EU, it's really no big difference, except the Netherlands phrases it a little bit more casually, which we would expect probably. However, the ethos of the legislation is exactly the same. So they ask to use correct, clear, specific, and complete sustainability claims, and substantiation, as well as describing future sustainability ambition in verifiable terms. Now, the EU is looking at making a generic environmental claim for which the trader is not able to demonstrate, recognize excellent environmental performance of the claim, basically saying exactly the same as the Dutch. So there's only a little difference in terms of the way that this is translated into local regulation. Now, if we look at the same conversation in terms of extended producer responsibility that we're going to talk about very quickly, in the Netherlands, this has been adopted, and it's in course to be implemented in 2023. And that is to do with the textile decree on extended producer responsibility, and it's really overseeing a full fee calculation for textiles placed on the market. So in 2024, there is a provisional fee of 0.10 euro cents per kilogram of textiles put on the market. And in France, by the way, that fee is per garment. So again, a very big difference between the two different states. Also, Netherlands is looking at EPR, so extended producer responsibility, in packaging as well. So there are country targets to be looking at plastics, recycled, wooden packaging, and all sorts of other contents within the packaging. But that's coming onward for them since 2014. However, it's being broadened up since 2023. Now, if we're looking at their Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management guidance, they really expect the Dutch to report on this year on year, and this is currently happening. And in terms of why the extended producer responsibility on textiles is coming into play, that is because 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from clothing and footwear. And the EU generates 12.6 million tons of textiles a year. So this is a pretty important stream of extended producer responsibility targets. Excuse me. So based on the EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles, we see that there is an ongoing European legislative train in terms of adopting specific types of eco-modulation. And this is over here a map of current active EPR systems. So obviously France, Hungary, the Netherlands, and Latvia have current active EPR systems. And upcoming and impending implementation, all the other countries in green, so Sweden, Spain, Greece, with drafted planned EPR all over the rest of the orange regions. And we can see we have different types of costing or calculation across EPR. So Australia is voluntary. France is really looking at taxing that, and they're currently debating how to develop that taxation. And it's an average of between 0.01 to 0.06 euros per garment, which is really quite important in terms of you wanting to have a certified green claim to prove that you can avoid that EPR tax. And also other countries such as Italy, Norway, and Chile are planning to implement EPR. Now, the funniest thing here is that the US state of California has already adopted and is proposing a textile EPR fine between $10,000 and $50,000 a day for non-conformity, so for non-compliance. If you don't file your EPR or you don't know how much product you put on the market in California, you either decide to pay that fee or to file for EPR. So again, one of these outliers that nobody would have expected, such as California and New York states, and we can see other states in the future. So if you trade with the states, this is what's upcoming. Looking at France specifically, in France, EPR is really sort of developed by Refashion, as you might know, and it's looking at adopting the eco-modulation concept. And currently, this is part of the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products, broad European directive, and is going to really look at what criteria are included in the EPR eco-modulation. Currently, certified materials are included, such as Global Organic Textile Standard or Recycled Content Standard. However, durability criteria are being negotiated and are being under discussion. So we are awaiting for an update from France on this. And it is really definitely walking along a lot faster than the rest of European states. Now I'm going to very quickly touch base on UDR because this isn't material to textiles, but is material to anybody who has packaging on the market. So again, we assume that those textiles move on to the market in packaging. The quick takeaway from UDR is that it's a due diligence type of exercise. So it's a risk-based due diligence obligation. And this isn't if you want to make a green claim. This is obligatory. And it starts on the 30th of December this year, so around Christmas. Definitely needing to be compliant here, and it's looking at a due diligence statement that the retailer or brand needs to produce. And the scope of commodities is over there, so oil, soya, wood, cattle, cocoa, coffee, rubber. Again, very important for footwear brands, and if you have rubber in your products, you're under EUDR disclosure scope. It's really looking at different deadlines for non-SME operators. As I said, 30th of December 24. SME operators are getting one more year, half a year. And then non-SME traders and SME traders have different timelines. The definitions of what an operator and a trader is are slightly different, and operators need to kickstart their due diligence statement, send it over to the downstream operator, which needs to store it based on a unique identification number, and then the trader in between these two entities need to basically also receive the due diligence statement and keep a record. And then the large downstream operator, which is the last entity before the retailer, needs to check the due diligence statement and create a risk assessment if that is something that they feel they need to do based on the risk-based approach. Now, I'm just going to quickly go through this. Due diligence plus the statement needs to happen, and the large companies based in the EU need to notify current authorities based on any violations they find. Also, traders need to do the same thing. As mentioned, the type of data collected for this is really to do with name of product, quantity, country of production, geo-coordinates, and geolocation, and the EU is still yet to publish what these geo-coordinates are and what the risk-based categories are under EUDR. So they're still working on it. It probably should hit the ground running before December. And after all of that risk assessment is being filed, risk mitigation type and risk minimization activity needs to be undertaken and to request for more information, and then an HS code, which is going to be published, is going to be filed within the due diligence statement with country of production, geo-coordinates, and the goods being produced there. So in terms of how a retailer or an operator that is in this supply chain should prepare, it is really to collect data on your wood and rubber supply chain and to understand and map as much as you can based on your data, and to have a supplier webinar or engage your suppliers, really. Now, speaking of engaging suppliers, we have the lovely CSRD and CSDDD, which are basically mandatory due diligence, looking at human rights and environmental impact topics, and CSRD is really the reporting mechanism. They apply to companies with more than 250 employees and revenue above 40 million euros that are located in the EU, or non-EU companies with a higher revenue than that trade with the EU. So again, different timelines for CSRD. 1st of Jan 24, it has been published. And 1st of Jan 25 is when large companies need to start reporting, as well as 26 when all the other companies are supposed to start reporting. So SMEs and non-EU companies must also report on this if they trade with EU. So that's really unavoidable. And then CSDDD is really looking at holistic supply chain, upstream and downstream, reporting and understanding of design, extraction, sourcing, manufacture, transport and storage of all of your goods in your supply chain. And these are really part of the Green Deal, as mentioned earlier, where the EU wants to cut at least 55% net emissions by 2030. And they are really looking at implementing this in terms of circular economy and packaging via the EPR, recycled content, and packaging redesign topics. So under this, packaging waste regulation is already in place, and it has really described and defined what packaging means in the European Union. And by the way, TÜV Rheinland offers these types of assessment on that side. So chemical safety, recycled material safety test, compostability, and assessment of packaging minimization. As if this wasn't a quick, thank you. I do get breathless, and I sometimes train retailers on this, but I'm gonna keep going. So digital product passport, again, another nightmare of either retailers or manufacturers within this. And this is really what's gonna underpin and take together all of these different regulations. So this is a mock-up of how it could look like, and it falls into scope with apparel, batteries, and consumer electronics, first in 26. So again, part of the EU Green Deal, but just another part of it. So under ESPR, Eco-Design Directive, Digital Product Passport, the Batteries Directive will be repealed in 2025 by Batteries Regulation, and that's when the Digital Passport kickstarts first with the batteries. So just in terms of positioning. Now, the eco-design requirements, or the data that a company that reports and needs to have digital product passport will have to bring, are topics across durability, reliability, reusability, upgradability, repairability, and the possibility of maintenance and refurbishment, as well as energy use and energy efficiency, carbon-related topics, recycled content, the possibility of remanufacturing and recycling, recovery materials, so that really is an example of keeping all of that material in the circular economy loop, and the expected waste generated. So broadly, until 26, when all of these requirements are going to be asked of the different actors within the supply chain, I would say this is the type of Excel spreadsheet you need to start creating in your supply chain to gather this information to be able to report on digital product passport. So the legislative train on this has obviously been in work since 2022, been in public consultation in 23, and it has been negotiated within the EU Commission, Parliament, and Council, so within the trilogue 23-24. And then the energy labeling, as well as eco-design sustainable products, has collaboratively worked on to bringing the digital product passport into regulation ongoing from 2024, with the first reporting happening 2026, as I mentioned, across apparel, electronics, and batteries. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of time to breathe, and hopefully to allow everyone to think about any questions. But if you're a retailer, or if you're a manufacturer working with European retailers, this is sort of your problem currently in 2024. And it looks like a much smaller problem, especially if you work in France. If you don't make any green claims, that's not material to you. Do you use an MRSL list? Well, that might not be material to you. EUDR is not yet mandatory, so that might not be important yet. The EPR on packaging is material to you, so you probably report on that. However, you don't report on digital product passport yet, and you probably don't collect any data. CSRD is not mandatory yet, and you have not yet started to calculate your carbon footprint or your organizational carbon footprint. Eco-modulation tax, it's a problem if you're in France and the Netherlands and a few other countries, but this is really evolving. And the durability topic in the rest of the European Union has not yet been adopted or implemented. So this is still in conversation and you're not exactly aware of it. However, if you land at 2026 and 25 onwards, this materiality map is really expanding and broadening, because from 25 onwards to 26, you are going to have to report on EPR packaging, report on EPR textiles, as it is broadened up, report on EU deforestation regulation as a mandatory claim, even not on textiles. If your brand and retailer wants to make any green claims, you're going to have substantiation and certification for that green claim. If you don't have an MRSL list or wastewater testing, substance management, and make green claims, that's again a problem. So you're going to have that. The digital product passport is really coming very close to you, and if you're a multi-retailer, then you have to really sell batteries with your toys, so you have to report on that. And further on, obviously, CSRD and durability become adopted because France really moved that legislative trail forward. So you're going to have to really align on that. And durability in the rest of Europe, as well as the UK, is really in a lot of consultation and negotiation with third-party labs, as well as other entities. So that's really going to look like a bit of a nightmare for you to navigate in the next few years. Hopefully, you can get prepared. There is still time. And a little bit in terms of what that blue sky preparation or strategy should look like is look at your strategic sustainability strategy, but in a very aligned and materiality assessment-based way. Look at your data collection and data quality and really expand that, not only to weight of garments or materials, but really across everything that I've mentioned, and maybe even more than that. Look at your governance system, understand cross-functional and interdisciplinary collaboration in your organization. Really use directive expertise or like expertise within your management sort of decision making. Enable your employees, so a bottom-up approach. Enable those people who understand your supply chain and who work in farming and who work in wood or who are traders. Maintain a very close eye on regulation and legislation. Actually, get subscribed to the EU legislative trains and understand that there is weekly updates on that. And really use a lot of stakeholder dialogue and be part of the conversation. So across all of the legislative topics, as well as digital chemical management, legislative trainings, wastewater testing, and MRSL list creation, as well as durability testing across soft lines, hard lines, packaging, and solar, TÜV Rheinland can support, and we would be happy to do so. And thank you so much. This was really my outlook on some of the European regulation impending to 2026 to retailers and brands. Thank you. Now, after all that, any questions?
Hello. We have many new laws and directives to comply, and you said that the first one we have to target is the extended producer responsibility. Why product digital passport should be managed a little bit later?
Well, mostly digital product passport should be managed a bit later because it's not fully expected to be reported on until 2026. So that's the year when it becomes mandatory. That's just the legislative train and how it goes. EPR is already mandatory in the Netherlands, in France, and in a few other countries, as well as the UK. And for multi-retailers selling both in the UK and in Europe, they were very surprised when they had one store in Europe and then they got a fine because they haven't reported on EPR in Europe. So that's pretty much why the EPR is already implemented, and the digital product passport is awaiting for some directives on batteries, on carbon, and on, obviously, eco-design requirements that are being currently in public consultation. And after that, it will be mandated on how it's implemented. So we're waiting on the how for the digital product passport. Any other question? I take it that was clear then. Thank you.
I guess it's a little bit too much. I mean, too many regulations. People don't know what to do. Anyway, you pay a fee and you can produce as you like. And then it depends what's going to happen in 25 and 26.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, I don't know, I think it's very serverlotic. I mean, they are thinking and doing laws and complicating things to anyone, to the producer, retailers, and nobody knows what to do. That's the point, to me. So, okay. Let's see what's going to happen.
Yeah. Can I quickly ask you what organization you represent?
No, I'm in the footwear business.
Okay.
We publish a professional magazine, Sutoria, for the shoe producer, and we have a magazine for the tanneries.
Okay.
And the deforestation law was vilified by cottons, etc.
Yeah.
Because it's very serverlotic. They don't consider the people they have to work.
I hear you.
You have to pay to work.
I hear you.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yes, I guess
doesn't make any sense at all.
I hear what you're saying. The ethos of the legislation shouldn't be that you have to pay a tax and still continue to put the same product on the market. And I think EU deforestation regulation is doing just that. So it's no longer only about the green claims you wanted to make, but it's really becoming more material to brands and retailers to report on where the things are coming from. And it's always going to be resistance in implementing new regulations, but we have to avoid that deforestation supply chain, so it's part of it.
Yes, but where there is a deforestation in Europe, where? We are talking about Brazil and things. So, it's just something very, okay, this is my ideal. Okay, let's do it. But the point is, we have to produce in that way, put in a lot of money. The product costs the double of what they used to be before. The consumer don't have the money to pay for that. And then we can import from any other countries outside Europe anything. Anything goes on the market. No control, no deforestation, no anything. This is the point.
Yes, yeah, but the EUDR is really looking at the full supply chain, so they're really trying to avoid that within the supply chain wherever you go. So, yeah, well, it's going to have to be implemented and to see how it actually works in reality. And I look forward to that December to see how the markets react to that. And I think it's just a testimony to the fact that, of course, everything is more expensive. Of course, it is more expensive to buy leather now. Of course, the impacts of different climate change-related conflicts and everything that's currently happening, of course, is going to show that. And that's why we need to shift towards a circular economy and a refurbishment and resale business model. So,
yes, but then you have Shein, and everyone goes to buy in Shein, okay? And this is, and they send it to you directly from China to your home in Europe. So,
are you based in Italy?
It's really. I mean, I'm not only.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. I want to be sustainable. I look after all these things. I'm trying to educate my daughter not to buy to Shane, to buy other things, and this is what I believe for. But I mean, if you have so many rules and the production cost is so high, so expensive, you are not any more competitive in the market. And everyone can come in Europe with different products, very cheap, and all the people. When you go to a shop and you have a shoes 250 euro or 100 euro, what do you buy? Your wage is 1,500 euro a month or 2,000. What do you buy?
Yeah,
1,000. You don't care. You don't care where the leather comes from, how they are made for, what kind of glue, if it's water glue or if it's chemical glue. You don't care because you just look at the price.
Yeah.
So that's what I say. It's very, I mean, okay.
Blue sky scenario, yes.
Very good ideas. But then practically, how can we survive with that?
Yeah, we shall see how.
If there is a control in the import.
Yeah, we shall see how the market develops and regulates, and look forward to that.
But I'm happy to live in a farmhouse in Italy, close to the lake, in the vineyard area.
Beautiful.
No problem waking up in the morning, all the animals. I'm just doing my gardening. I'm just doing my vegetable garden.
Nice to meet you. Let's catch up after. Okay, is there another question?
Maybe not a question, but a reply also to your concerns, what you are reflecting. My name is Dieter. I'm from Textile Research, and I work in standardization and also in the regulation.
Nice to meet you.
What you are complaining mainly is about the import. But you say, okay, the sustainability in it. But the sustainability initiatives coming from the Commission and so on, I think they are on a good way. Okay, there's a big confusion what to do first, but you give a good presentation about the overview and the priorities. But what we are afraid is, okay, what will happen with all the import coming from China and so on? And so this is a thing, I think this is a job the Commission has already detected and initializes some initiatives to control the imports. This is a missing point, a little bit a missing point. But if we make this point, then I think all the regulations will fit.
Yeah, I think the regulations are just a tool to really look at the market and establish the market in the future. And we can only see how they're going to be implemented and work in practice and at scale, right? So this is how we talk about recycling. Is that product recyclable and recycled in practice and at scale? That's the definition of recyclability, not just because something could be recycled. You're really looking at your infrastructure and take back and your waste infrastructure across the polymers and packaging types that you put on the market. So there's a theoretical definition of recycling, and then there's the in practice and at scale definition of recycling. That's exactly what's going to happen with the UDR and all the other ones, how they're actually going to be implemented in practice and at scale. So that's my take on it. But again, there are so many other people who have different takes on this, and they're all valid. So any other questions? We can catch up later. Tell me about that Italian village. I'll come see you later.
Natural tannin coming from chestnut. Now, in 2026, you cannot use the word biodegradable. And they have developed a technology.
It's not okay. So I'll give you a little bit of an example on the word biodegradable. So it's not that in 2026 you cannot use the word biodegradable. The way you can use the word biodegradable is a non-misleading way. So you have a biodegradable product which you test in the lab at TÜV Rheinland or any other testing provider, see if it is biodegradable, get a certificate, and they put your mark on that product, and that makes it even stronger. So it is to say you can make a green claim, but with substantiation, looking at the full life cycle of the product. So So then that truly biodegradable product can really shine against other products that are not tested and that are not actually biodegrading in the marine environment, in the soil, in the compost, wherever else. So that's kind of what the legislation is really doing, and we're hoping that this is going to really support those that are truly sustainable and in a full life cycle manner. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, and this is good, but